Welcome to Handmade History. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Alicia.
I'm Sonia.
And this is the Handmade History Podcast. This week we're talking about the history of the pride flag.
Yep.
And
Pride.
So we'll talk about all different kinds of flags, and we'll start with the original rainbow pride flag. Sonia?
Yeah.
You want to kick us off?
Yeah. So the rainbow pride flag debuted at the Gay Pride Parade in San Francisco in 1978 that was called the Gay Freedom Day Parade. And there were two enormous flags that were 40 by 60 feet. And the design was rainbow stripes with pink at the top and turquoise and blue instead of indigo.
And the two flags were slightly different. So one is very similar to the pride flag that we picture now with just the stripes. And another one had looked more like an American flag, and it had a square of stars like the American flag, but they were tie-dyed. So there was a blue square with white tie-dyed stars. There were also 18 smaller flags made by artists for the parade, and they lined a reflecting pool and were reflected in it. So it must have looked really cool at the parade itself.
It does sound really cool. So the two giant flags were made by a few people. Gilbert Baker, and there was written about the flag, and it's definitely the person who spread it the most and publicized it the most. They wrote a memoir called Rainbow Warrior. There was also James McNamara, Robert Gutman, Lee Metney, and Lynn Segerblom, who at the time went by Fairy Argyle Rainbow.
Yeah, and these people all knew one another, and they spent time together at an art gallery / community space at 330 Grove Street in San Francisco. And there's a lot of different origin stories for the idea. One I read was that they were dancing and there was a disco light and it reflected rainbows, and that's where the idea of the rainbow came from. But there were other origin stories for this rainbow flag. I think the big takeaway is that the 70s were a time of collaboration, and so somehow from this group of people, the idea to have a rainbow flag at the parade came about. And they were actually a huge project to make. So these people and other volunteers all worked together. They actually dyed fabric on the roof of 330 Grove Street. They used garbage cans for the hot water and giant 2x4s, like boards, to agitate the fabric so that it would be evenly dyed. Then they dried the fabric and they used sewing machines to sew them together. Like I said, they had tons of volunteers. It was a really big job.
Yeah, it took 7 weeks to make the flags, which is a long time.
A long time.
And the cost was $1,000 to make the flag, which is about $4,600 today. And then it was at this parade where they became a symbol, where the rainbow became the pride symbol.
Yeah, so it was this moment where these people had this idea, we're going to have a parade. Let's make some rainbow flags for it. And then at the parade, it was like a moment of recognition among a lot of people. Like everyone at the parade, it seems like, was like, oh, this is the symbol of our pride. So kind of a cool moment in history. Unfortunately, afterward, the flags were stolen. But more recently, a piece of the original flag, one of the original flags, was found. So Gilbert Baker had actually taken a 10 by 28 foot piece, so really, really big piece of the flag, and put it in storage. And eventually it made its way back to the Gilbert Baker Foundation. And now that piece of the flag is in the GLBT Historical Society Museum, which is, quote, the first standalone museum of LGBTQ history and culture in the United States. So that's on permanent display, and the museum is in San Francisco's Castro district. Yeah.
Next, we'll talk about the Trans Pride flag, which was created by Monica Helms in 1999. Monica Helms is a trans activist and a U.S. Navy veteran, and she served on 2 submarines and founded the Transgender American Veterans Association. The flag was designed in 1999 with pink and blue representing colors associated with girls and boys, and white representing intersex, transitioning, or no defined gender identities.
And this flag also debuted at a pride parade. This one was in Phoenix in 2000. And I kind of did a little like mini deep dive, to quote the office ladies, on transgender people in the military since it seemed relevant. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which is what I grew up with and was conscious of, ended in 2011. But at that point, there were still restrictions on trans people. And in 2017, President Trump banned transgender people from the military. He tweeted about it. And then it later became official through a presidential memo that was upheld by the Supreme Court in 2019. But in 2021, President Biden signed an executive order reversing this position. So there are currently no restrictions on transgender people in the military. I just thought this was, learning about this history was important to me because growing up under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, at the time, that seemed like a very reasonable policy. And now it seems very damaging and ludicrous and horrible. And even when that policy ended, things still didn't change for transgender people. So I was surprised and sad to learn about this, but just wanted to share that little bit of history. But Sonia, now you can tell us about the More Color, More Pride flag.
Yes. So this pride flag came from Philadelphia in 2017. So Amber Hikes, who's the head of the Office of LGBT Affairs in Philly, worked with a Philadelphia ad agency, Tierney, to design the flag, which was created after there were racist incidents in the neighborhood of downtown Philly. And it was debuted at City Hall on June 8, 2017 at a Pride kickoff event.
And that flag looks just like the original rainbow flag, only minus the pink and turquoise stripes. And it has a black and brown stripe added. I should have said before that the pink and turquoise stripes didn't really last because they were hard to manufacture. So those ones are not really in a lot of the pride flags that you see. After the More Color, More Pride flag, there's the Progress Pride flag, which, Sonia, would you say this is the most common one that you see? It's definitely the most common one that I see.
Yeah, I think when it was first debuted, I think it was not I don't know, it was 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everyone was kind of using both.
Yeah.
But I think now people are choosing a flag. They probably choose this one.
Yeah. So this is the one that looks like the rainbow flag. And then instead of having the brown and black stripes at the top, it has a chevron, like a triangle, pointing from the left-hand side to the right, pointing right. And that incorporates the trans pride flag. So in 2018, like you said, Sonia, Daniel Kazar, who uses Z-them pronouns, designed the Progress Pride flag. Z is a graphic designer and an animator. And the symbolism of this design with the chevron, it shows a few things. So it still has the black and brown stripe, just like the more color, more pride flag, to represent marginalized POC, as well as people who have died from HIV/AIDS, are living with AIDS, and the stigma attached to AIDS. The other colors kind of follow the symbolism that has come out of the rainbow flag. So red is life, orange is healing, yellow is sunlight, green is nature, blue is peace and harmony, purple is spirit. And then the point of the chevron pointing right shows that progress is being made and that still needs to be made. But obviously these things are open to interpretation. I think that's kind of the beauty of a flag, right? But these are some of the things that I've read about. To make this flag, there was a Kickstarter campaign. It was called Progress, a Pride Flag Reboot. And initially 500 of the flags were made along with pins and stickers. The budget for the Progress Pride flag was $14,000, but the campaign ended up raising more than $25,000. And this one debuted online on the internet. So this is, I think, the first one that didn't debut at a in-person event. Kind of interesting.
Great. And then the next flag we'll talk about is the Intersex Inclusive Pride flag. So Valentino Fischetti of Intersex Equality Rights in the UK added a yellow triangle instead of the white. There's a white one in the chevron, right?
Right, exactly.
So instead of that, it's the yellow triangle and a circle to represent intersex people, which are people with diverse sex characteristics that were not previously included in these flags. And it also represents asexual and aromantic people. And this was also an internet debut in 2021. It looks like you could download files and images of the flag from the debut.
Yeah. So you can just go to the website and it says get the flag and then you get the files. So I have also seen this one around. I've noticed it this year, actually, I would say maybe for the first time. But there are so many other flags we were talking about before we started recording. So there was the bisexual flag, which was designed by Michael Page on the website Bi Cafe, which was an online internet cafe in 1998. There's the intersex flag, which is similar to the one that Valentino Bacchetti designed. It's like a yellow and purple flag. That was designed by Morgan Carpenter of Intersex Human Rights in Australia in 2013. There's the sunset lesbian flag that was designed in 2016 by Emily Gwen on Twitter, is where it debuted. The aromantic flag, which was designed in 2014 by user Cameron Whimsy, and that debuted on Tumblr. Then there's the asexual flag, which was actually designed through a contest held by the Asexual Visibility Network in 2010, and the username StandUp won. And while I was looking at all these flags, I was like, what even is a flag? It is just a rectangle and with colors that are symbolic, and there can be other symbols on it. And it can be digital. It can be in real life. It's kind of like a very interesting artistic prompt, and its meaning is kind of automatically there from like the shape and because of our familiarity with flags. So like this is all very interesting. I have not thought about flags this much, but there are so many flags and they mean so much. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like, because you're talking about like, you're like, I don't know if people like my generation still uses flags, but like we do.
We do.
Like, people really like flags, and they're not really physical flags.
Yeah, they're like
kind of they do flag raising, but like people call like, oh, this flag, but it's just the color scheme.
right.
A real connection to it still.
Like I was thinking the place where you would put a flag, like where I personally would put a flag would be like next to my on my bio on like social media.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
They have the emoji flag.
Exactly. So it's very interesting the way that flags have translated so well onto the internet, I think. So yeah, so why do you think, well, I was asking, why do we think that flags,
What? Why flags?
why flags? It started in 1978, which happened to be 2 years after bicentennial, so that like flags were a thing then. That's what started this whole thing.
Mine, yeah. I also think there's just like a certain like drama to, right, like waving flags and parades. Like that's a historic, like people wave flags in parades. That's kind of the imagery you picture.
Yeah.
And like these giant flags, when you see pictures of them, I don't know if it's San Francisco or New York, but they're like, it's like a sea of people. Like it fills a whole like street and like a city.
They're very moving. Yeah. Seeing those aerial photographs. Yeah.
Yeah. Giant, like it's, especially in a time when it was like, random people just didn't have these flags, right? Like I think it's much more common now, which I think why is like other flags become more popular. But like the general gay pride flag, a lot of people just put it on to show support, and that was not really common. So I think it was much more impactful to standers-by to have these like giant symbols.
Yeah. Yeah, but so the popularity of the flags really started, I mean, so I think the reason that it was flags at all to begin with, though, is because these hippies in the 70s were making the pride, the rainbow flag, just 2 years after the bicentennial. So flags were super popular in 1976, like American flags, because we were celebrating like the 200-year birthday of America. And I think before then, maybe American flags were just kind of like, you know, maybe the way they are now, not like something to get excited about. But in 1976, they were like everywhere. It was like the thing. And so flags were kind of on people's minds. And so it was a natural progression to create a flag for that Gay Pride Day in San Francisco. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the shift from how the flags were made. So like that first rainbow flag, everybody was getting together on the roof and hand dyeing the fabric and stitching it on sewing machines. They were all sharing. And so they were made in San Francisco. And then when the Progress Pride flag was made, that was such a different model. So there was a Kickstarter fund. So it was a much bigger group of people because it was on the internet. It was much more like money, much bigger funding pool. And then it was, of course, manufactured overseas. So I couldn't actually find out where those original Progress Pride flags were manufactured, but my guess is that they were overseas. And this one was framed as a campaign as opposed to the original Pride flag, which one of the creators, Lee Mentley, said he called it an art project. So just kind of a interesting shift. Yeah.
It is interesting. I like the imagery of like dyeing fabric on a rooftop.
I know. It's like so 70s.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of debuts, as we saw a lot of these flags were debuted at Pride events and parades, but then more recent ones have been debuted online, which are like ongoing community events and like Pride events in a way.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Like you said, like lifted, but the flag idea is not, even as they're not really flags, we still call them flags. Like idea is not.
It's a digital flag. So yeah, it's shifted, but it's still there. It still is really meaningful. I do think that people coming together in real life is really like something about that makes it a more potent symbol. So I think that that's maybe one reason why the flags are popular now is because they kind of had all these community events that happened beforehand, like the original flag, Pride flag, and then the trans Pride flag and the more color, more Pride flag. I think that those like real life parades kind of gave them some power. Because I was just thinking about also like more recently the pink hats that people made for the Women's March in 2016. That was like such a meaningful event. And now even that pink hat like means something. If you see it, you know what it means. So, yeah. Part of this, I was thinking like how different your experience is being 10 years younger than me than my experience was. And I think it's like really good. Like I think a lot of good change has been made. I like to think it's getting better. But a couple of things I did want to mention that even though so much has changed that has been positive, there's still a long ways to go for queer people in the United States, especially young queer people. So when I was doing the research for this, on more than one website, a pop-up came up that said, if you hit the escape key, this window will close. And I was like, I don't get it. What's happening? And then I was like, oh, wait, if a kid is researching on this website and their parent or somebody comes by and they don't want them to see what they're researching, they can hit the escape key and be safe. And so that kind of reminded me of the dangers that are still quite real for a lot of people in the U.S.
Yeah. So according to the Trevor Project, there is a 2021 national survey of 35,000 people ages 13 to 24. And of the 35,000, 75% had experienced discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, and 42% seriously considered suicide, including greater than half of transgender and non-binary youth.
Yeah, so those are real statistics that are really, really heartbreaking to me. So, but there are some ways that you can get involved. If you're a crafty person, there's a really great organization called Knit the Rainbow. It distributes hats and socks to homeless LGBT youth in cities across the country. So I know there's a drop-off point there. It started in New York City, but there's also a drop-off point in Boston and in other places, I think Chicago also, and you can mail in things and they will be happy to take them. And the other thing is if you have a trans or non-binary person in your life, you can use their pronouns. That cuts the likelihood of their attempting suicide in half.
So that's it for this episode. You'll always use your preferred pronouns on this podcast, and we love LGBTQ folks, and we are really happy that you're all here.
So you can find us on Instagram and on TikTok. We're at Handmade History Podcast, and you can email us at handmadehistoryhosts@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, hear about some fun or interesting flags, fun facts about flags, or if you have a topic you think we should cover, we would love to hear that too. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
and this is the History of Handmade podcast. This week is that not what it's called?
Handmade history.